Okay, go ahead.
At this time, I'd like to call the special board meeting to order. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Arencibia,
Present.
Hall,
Present.
Segura,
Present.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Aguirre.
Present.
We will now hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. All please rise. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Per Government Code Section 54954.3, this is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on the item that has been described in the notice for the meeting, the special meeting before or during consideration of that item. Speakers shall refrain from using profanity and shall speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation.
There are no speakers, Mr. President.
If there are no speakers, we'll move to C1, which is approve revised policy board 5141.52 suicide prevention. I'll just name them all out. Is that all right? And then we'll just go from there. C2 will be provide special board policy 5146, married students. C3, approve updates to the Mar Vista parent policy that supports administrative regulations 6020, parent involvement, as requested by Federal Program Monitoring, FPM. C4, C4, approve revised board bylaw 9270, conflict of interest. And take it away, Dr. Aguirre.
Okay, thank you, President Segura. As you may be aware, we are going through the FPM process, the Federal Program Monitoring that happens every year. The California Department of Education staff has been here. And in order for us to mitigate the number of possible findings, these are all revisions to existing policies and or bylaws. So again, this is mostly a matter of kind of revising and adjusting to reflect. Usually it's new legislation that has come forward. So in order for us to address these in a proactive manner, we brought these forward. So I can ask Dr. Moore to speak to C1 and C2, the suicide prevention revision to that policy, or the policy revision to 5146, married, pregnant, parenting students. Dr. Alvarez can speak to the updates to the Mar Vista High School parent policy that supports Administrative Regulation 6020. And then our general counsel can speak to the revised board bylaw 9270. And again, these are fairly technical in nature, but we wanted to make sure we had the ability to bring these forward. So with that, Dr. Moore, would you mind speaking to C1 and C2? And then Dr. Alvarez, if you could speak to C3, and General Counsel Carbucha to C4.
Good morning. Good morning to the board, and thank you, Dr. Aguirre. We'll start off with board policy 5141.52, our suicide prevention policy. The revisions, and I think it's important to note that these revisions are the recommendations from the CDE as well as the California School Boards Association, and really there to mesh with with some of our other policies as well. In particular, the suicide prevention policy, the revisions are really, of course, to highlight the importance of suicide prevention, and recognizing that it is in the district's interest to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all of its students, and to make sure that we are responsive to any attempts of suicide. But also, one of the revisions, again, based on best practices, is to have a suicide prevention team. And though that team is not necessarily identified specifically in this policy, that team for our district, includes our director of student services, an identified school psychologist, myself as the chief of educational equity and support services, and we act in accordance with ensuring that there's training and other protocols that we can provide to our administrative teams and to our counselors and teachers as well. And so this policy really encapsulates all of that. And the changes were changes that were recommended by California Department of Education, and they're in alignment with our other board policies and programs. Were there any questions on board policy 514.52, suicide prevention?
I see a hand up. Oh, Mr. Tarantino, go ahead, sir, I believe.
Thank you, President Segura. Thank you for answering one of my questions, Dr. Moore, in terms of who is our district team representative. So thank you for that. On page where it says BP 5141.52A, in the second box, in an attempt, the second paragraph within that box, in an attempt to reduce the suicidal behavior at all, can we be given the ARs when they're developed, so like that we can look at them in terms of developing the strategies for suicide prevention, interventions, and prevention type thing, identification of the mental health challenges? How are we going to implement that? If we could see the ARs for that when they're developed, I don't expect that they're developed right now, but when they are, let's see. So that's my first ask. On page B in the first box, it mentions that there'll be a site liaison. When the sites determine who that liaison will be, can we be given the information on a Friday update, so like that we know who is going to be responsible at the site level? Last one, the last question that I have is on under suicide prevention continued. It talks about staff development training, and I'm assuming, I don't know if I'm correct in assuming this, but I'm assuming that the staff development will be in the form of something like a JPA training, like we just took for the COVID and we've taken for sexual harassment and for the characteristics of a hostile work environment. Is my assumption correct, or are we going to be, is there going to be another form of staff development presented to all of us?
So starting with the
excuse me, Mr. Dr. Moore, can
sorry.
everybody make sure they're muted? Like, I don't know if somebody's not. We're getting feedback. Thank you.
So let's see. Starting with that last question, Trustee Tarantino, thank you. regarding the training, there is a training that is provided at all the sites, and it is a pre-formatted training. We're also reviewing the Living Works training that has been provided by San Diego County Office of Education this year. It's an online component training where for staff, students and community members, where families can be provided these training opportunities so that they're aware of the factors to prevent suicide. And so all of those training components are being reviewed and will be implemented, but we do have the standardized package training that all of our staff get, and will continue to use that. As it relates to the previous questions about the site liaisons and the administrative regulations, yes, this will absolutely be shared with the board.
Thank you, Doc. That's all I had.
Go ahead, Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura, and thank you, Mr. Tarantino. I appreciate your questions. I'm really thankful we have a suicide prevention policy. I do appreciate that you're looking into the Living Works, because that is there's a timeliness to that training. So I think it's very important that you get that word out as soon as possible. It is also not just a one-time 30-minute sit down. It's actually quite a long, not long, but it has several different modules to it. So it takes more than just a one-time go through. So I think it's more intense, and it really ties into the state's effort for across the state to educate and to equip staff, parents, and students to not only recognize the signs, but what to do in order to help people. Because this is actually the most one of the most preventable, mortalities we can, causes of mortality that we could work to make sure we do everything we can to help people so we don't have those tragedies occur. But my question was about on page, I think it's the second page of the policy, the second box, where it says it promotes the mental health model and does not encourage the use of the stress model to explain suicide. I don't know exactly what that means. Do you have are we using a stress model currently? And I don't even know what that is.
I think they mean by crisis intervention as opposed to long setups beforehand. I mean, that's the way I would read it, but I could be incorrect.
In all of the training that I've partaken in, as it relates to suicide, suicide prevention, suicide ideation, the emphasis on getting someone to talk, to speak, to the idea of bringing up suicide is generally perceived as never the reason someone may choose, or there may be a suicide completion. The idea of having the conversation, getting the person to be vocal, and so the stress model I would think of is either waiting until there's a stressor or stressing event, or encouraging the dialogue, and so all of the models I've ever been trained on are about encouraging the dialogue.
Okay. So I think what you mean is the emphasis is on pre-training, not post-vention, right?
Sure.
So not after it's already happened, where you're coming in and trying to help people after the fact. I think that's what Dr. Ancibia alluded to. I think it would be important also to have a communication tool, really, at training, because I know the county is offering that as well at different points in the year, where they're actually engaging with the communication contact for each district in order to help them understand how you deal with media in a way that isn't going to counteract all the work you're doing on the prevention side of because I think that is one of the most difficult situations, is really how do we communicate when there's something like this going on. So I would encourage staff to look into that and participate in it in the next one coming up. The Suicide Prevention Council, which I go and am involved with, are part of that. They offer those trainings. So hopefully I'll be able to share with staff when that happens. But I thank you for this, and I thank for the works being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Dr. Arancibia, you have your hand up, sir.
Yes, I'd move to be approve this.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall, Mrs. Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Move to C2.
And
Arturo
C2
Is
And-
now exiting.
and C2 is Board Policy 5146 regarding our pregnant and parenting students. And in this policy, it's really to align the policy with our other non-discrimination factors, that students cannot be discriminated against for being parents or being pregnant students. And really, the main thrust of this is that in the past, and I've been in education for quite a few years, districts and programs would set up specific programs at a specific location or school. And in a sense, students could potentially be segregated from the population of students attending other schools in order to, they could in some cases be sent to another program. And state law and board policy no longer allows that. It's not to say that there can't be specialized programs to support any students that may be pregnant or parenting, but it is to say that those programs do need to be identified at our school sites. Students cannot be made to change their schools and school programs based on the fact of if they are pregnant or parenting. And so it's very, very specific to make sure that it is aligned with our other discrimination policies.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on that from the board on this policy change, upgrade, revision? Trustee Tarantino, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just had a question on 5146C. It talks about in collaboration with the community, with community agencies and organizations. My question is, have we identified the CBO that we're going to be working with, or is that something to follow?
So we did pass earlier resolutions with our family resource centers and our community resource centers earlier this year. We did pass those collaborations, and so those are set up all throughout the county. We also have partnerships with San Ysidro Health and Scripps Health, and so all of those partners work with all of our schools and school nurses and counselors to make sure that resources are provided at our school sites for students, pregnant, parenting, married, and otherwise.
That's all I had. Thank you, Dr. Moore.
You're muted, sir.
If there's no further questions, I entertain a motion. I see Dr. Arancibia hand up.
Yeah,
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes,
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Move to C3.
Thank you, President Segura. This is an item to update Mar Vista High School's parent policy that supports Administrative Regulation 6020. I'll ask Dr. Alvarez to speak to the item. Dr. Alvarez?
Good morning, Dr. Aguirre, board members. Lovely to see you today. So this item was originally taken on March 8th to the board, and it was to make some specific language changes so that the ESSA components, the updated ESSA components and updated Ed Code components would be included. So the District Administrative Regulation 6020 was approved. Within that document, there are links to the individual site, Title I, school level parent and family engagement policies. But there were some components that Mar Vista was asked to change by our reviewer to ensure that they met the specific compliance requirements. The Title I parent involvement program really is to ensure that our parents and families are apprised of all the elements and resources that come with Title I. That includes the annual notification meeting, the school site councils, supports for the ELAC, and other opportunities for parents to engage not only in knowing the status of their own students' success, but how students are doing it at the school level and at the district level, and then looking at elements of support for both students and parents. This parent engagement also includes some information regarding parent trainings and parent support at the site level. And what Mar Vista mainly does is supports that through the open house, the school site council meetings, the coffee with the principal, which they have on a monthly basis, their parent center, which is open and supported by community resource support, and then the quarterly meetings that they have for their English Learner Advisory Committee. They also talk about some supports offered from counseling directly to parents so that they have information regarding child's progress and supports and interventions available. They also have something that they've included, which is called an academic rescue meeting, which is at that point, after they've gone through several levels of proactive supports, if students are in need of high intensity intervention, that committee or that team helps supports the parents and the students. All of this is aligned with what is in the US Code through ESSA and also in Ed Code for the state.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez. Do we have any questions for the board on this?
I'm sorry, but I'm still confused as to what the heck. I mean, in layman's terms, can somebody please tell me what are we actually updating here? Because I read the file and I was looking at it again, but I'm still not seeing what the difference was before as to what it is now.
Yeah, it's very limited language. Part of it is that there's a two-way communication with families instead of communication. There's just some nominal changes on language. In terms of the actual policy, we were really implementing all those elements prior to this, but there are some language changes that were necessary based on the updates.
Oh, so we're not talking about any just modification for just to be able to be in code.
Correct. There weren't any substantive changes. It was more language change.
Move to approve.
I'll second that. There's no further questions. Vote, please.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Finally, we'll move to C4.
Okay, thank you, President Segura. This is an item to revise Board Bylaw 9270. I'll ask our General Counsel to speak to this matter. Jenny.
Thank you. As you know, you as a board have adopted conflict of interest policies that Ms. Facedo oversees. As part of FPM this year, they have requested code language that's recently been adopted in regulations that says that if staff violate conflict of interest policies, appropriate disciplinary action will be taken. This is explicit language that they are requiring us to add. It is not in any way, shape, or form being adopted because we have had this issue. It is because it's a requirement of FPM. Additionally, Ms. Facedo, as she always does, added the new title changes to the bottom since we were already adopting it, and we take this annually forward, and those are the changes.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I'll just ask, what is how is it determined what the appropriate disciplinary action will be or is? Who
So we
decides?
have, sure. So we have a separate board policy and administrative regulation that speaks to disciplinary actions. Under both certificated and classified, there are a series of actions that if they are taken by employees, from immoral conduct to inefficiency to, in this case, I would say dishonesty or not following board bylaws or protocols, that can be taken. We follow across the district through our collective bargaining agreements and our board policies, a progressive discipline policy that really is dependent on what the offense is and whether it is egregious conduct or if it is something that is just, I was late, and therefore we build over time as to what an inefficiency in a job is and whether progressive discipline can be followed or substantive conduct discipline needs to be.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one.
Go ahead, Trustee Hall.
Okay. I don't see budget analyst. I see senior accounting technician, but I didn't see analysts on there, which I would think would be included. Is that, have we not in the past done that, or?
Budget analysts are listed in the highlighted provisions. They don't have to fill out all categories, but they do have to fill out disclosure categories 1 and 3.
Oh, see, I didn't turn back my page far enough. Obviously, I thought I looked through all of them. Thank you. I see it now. If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Move to the second. Vote, please.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, that takes care of all business. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you Friday. Bye.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
And you can adjourn the meeting. There you go. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And bye.